Royal Geographical Society, which I'm very pleased to note is still going strong in the era of Google Maps. A delicious anachronism, radical piece of conservatism, which is the best venue given the subject matter, the subject of tonight's celebration. Žižek at 75, himself a piece of remarkable, brilliant, marvelous, radical anachronism. A moderately conservative communist, as he calls himself, juxtaposing himself to what I called myself once the libertarian communism, just to confuse both libertarians and communists. You know Slavoj, you know the brilliance that oozes out of his mouth, out of his books. You don't need me to say any of this. But there is an aspect of Slavoj, which I'm sure he's going to hate me recounting, which you don't know. And that is Slavoj as a genuine, loyal friend. Independently of whether he agrees with you or not, we've had clashes, we disagreed, we nearly hit each other. But I can tell you that behind this facade of the person who is suffering from serious verbal diarrhea, audacity and political incorrectness and all that, behind that facade there is a genuine sweetheart. And I know this from personal experience, and I want to thank you, Slavoj, for this. Enough said on this. A living contradiction, a Hegelian, has to be a living contradiction, because contradiction is what fuels Slavoj. Slavoj, come to the stage, let's have I thought we should start with right at the beginning, because Slavoj has three fixations in life: Hegel, Hegel, and Hegel. And therefore, it's another grand contradiction, but he is so celebrated in this country. And I say this because in this country, if you ever study philosophy in any of the universities, they start with the ancient Greeks, then they move on to the Middle Ages, then they jump to Immanuel Kant, and then from Kant they go to Bertrand Russell, always bypassing Hegel, because from the perspective of Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Celtic analytical philosophy, Hegel was the epitome of muddled thinking. So how come you're so celebrated as a Hegelian in a country which doesn't give a damn about Hegel?
A good point where I would, as you hinted at, but in a way that you would agree, where I would maybe a little bit disagree with you is Kant has two faces. It's more complex. For example, and crazy things like this give me seriously an intellectual orgasm, which at my age it may be better than real. Did you read a small note in news? It was reported. You know that Kaliningrad, ex-Königsberg, there, Russia
a little anomaly.
they have a governor there. And he recently said that they are not proud of Kant there, because Kant is the origin of all modern evils: socialism, human freedom, women's rights, and he believes that Kant is ultimately responsible for the Ukrainian war. So I feel that Kant is the point of split. So why from Kant to Hegel? Because I will not go into detail, just to be really brief, it's very difficult for me. I wonder if you would agree. For me, paradoxically, it may sound crazy, but in some sense, my crazy sense, Hegel is, in some sense, I repeat it, more materialist than Marx. What you find in Marx is still an implicit, let's call it, teleology. Maybe there will be socialism, maybe not, but we may be guilty if there will be no socialism, we can screw it up. But history, there is a general sense of orientation, or as Rosa Luxemburg put it, the future will be socialist or barbarian.
Not the same thing. Because if you say that it will be barbarian, this is not a sense of improvement. It's exactly the opposite. So I thought that Rosa Luxemburg was breaking from this deterministic.
Yes, but when I don't agree with her. No, but every good Marxist would say this. But I have another problem. When she says this, but what about what happened in Stalinism? It was socialist barbarism. But what my point of Hegel is that if there ever, if you want to hear more about this, read my books, if there ever was a philosopher of contingency, totally open to the future, it's Hegel. Hegel is not a determinist. You know, in, for example, his philosophy of right, he says thought always comes too late, like the owl of Minerva. He strictly prohibits any speculations about the truth. At each moment, that's, I think, the deepest insight of Hegel. At each moment, we retroactively reconstruct the past, not in a magical sense, but and today we are, I think, in such a position. If new authoritarianism will prevail, socialism will be just a blind alley and so on. So we have, like in quantum physics, a superposition of 4 or 5 options, and this is what fascinates me in Hegel. Again, it's not just necessity and contingency in the sense of there is a general necessity, but then it actualizes itself in a contingent way. Plekhanov, the very bad Marxist for me, used here the example of Napoleon. There was a tendency towards imperial order in France. It was contingent that Napoleon did it. I think Hegel's point is to a large extent the exact opposite. Something happens contingently and retroactively when a new order is imposed, it's read as necessary. Let me give you my own pathetic example, although I've written a lot about it in politics and so on. Let's say you fall in love in the old-fashioned way, which is today almost considered political.
In the only way.
Sorry?
In the only way.
In the only way, yes. I'm not going to it. But what I want to say is that once, it may be totally contingent, like the stupid, you know, you walk on the street, sorry for stupidity, you sleep on a banana peel, a lady comes, helps you up, it's the love of your life. But once you are in it, you automatically reinterpret all the past as leading to this point. And Marx, at his best moments, knew this. You know the famous line from Grundrisse that capitalism, in the same way that only the anatomy of man provides the key for the anatomy of apes, capitalism provides the key for all previous social formations. This is not teleological determinism. It's totally clear from Marx. Capitalism emerged in a contingent way. It could have not happened. But once
but not
it is
just
clear,
capitalism.
sorry?
We only understood the Bronze Age when we shifted to the Iron Age.
Yeah,
Same thing.
Yeah, and this, I think, again, is Hegel at his best. Another thing.
So I understand why you're Hegelian because I'm Hegelian. What I don't understand, and I will never understand why do I need
if you are really Hegelian.
yes, the central committee that meaning him. But why do I need to care about Lacan?
Because the way I refer,
Whom I've never managed to understand, and I'm never going to start
I
trying.
also-
Unless we explain
No, I
Lacan.
clear-
Why do I need Lacan to understand the exercise and pattern of power?
First, don't you agree? Many people with whom I otherwise don't agree, not you, they make it clear that even Althusser, Balibar, I don't agree with them often, but they make it clear that don't you think that Marx didn't really understand political power? Something is missing there to understand state power and so on in Marx. But
Sure, but why is Lacan the one who is going to elucidate to us?
because let me,
I mean, Freud, I understand.
yeah.
The whole concept of the manufacturing desires,
Yeah. No.
of their
Forget about
subconscious.
that.
The
The crucial insight. absolutely crucial today, people tend to forget it, is when Freud says, I remember, I'm a little bit older than you probably, so I was there very young at 68. And I remember the hidden anti-feminism. The idea of young protesters was, we are against hysteria, hysterical subjects, read between the lines, women, they just protest, they don't really go to the end, while perverts go to the end. They realize what hysterics only dream about. Freud gave a proper answer to this, which is, nowhere is the unconscious more repressed, more inaccessible than in hysteria. And the best minds of Frankfurt School, like Adorno, were fully aware of this when they introduced a crucial notion of repressive disublimation. You disublimate in the common sense. Do whatever you want, vulgarly, and so on. But the result is a nightmare, a much more oppressive world. Now, to be very sure that I don't get lost, I will make a mega quick jump here.
Will you answer the question, why do I care about Lacan?
If you want to understand Trump, you should.
Okay, explain to me, why does Lacan elucidate Trump?
I cannot, not you, we are on the same wave here, of course. So when I take power, the people, that's me. Don't worry, you don't go to Gulag.
I'll tell you
of re-education.
He's going to send me, no, he will send me to the Gulag, but he will visit me often.
No.
You want to visit me?
I have precise plans. No, sorry. Let's go on
to Lacan.
To Lacan here. Yes. How could leftists, stupid leftists, not you, be so really stupid as to repeat the same mistake? You know, they thought now we had caught Trump, as it were, with his pants down. He was caught lying, obscenities, and so on. But that's how Trump, he never loses votes because of being caught lying. I read, a friend sent me from the United States a wonderful analysis why people vote for Trump. They claim, and up to a point they are right, Kamala Harris and Democrats don't look spontaneous. They give these prepared answers and so on, while they say Trump looks sincere. And then if you analyze it closely, there are two proofs of this sincerity. That he is obscene, dirty, undescribable filth, what he is saying. I'm even me, a well-known tasteless guy, I'm embarrassed here to repeat some of, for example, Trump's remarks about Kamala Harris, and that's the surprise. When he is caught lying, Trump voters read this as a sign of his sincerity. You know, he's not prepared by specialists and so on. So the paradox for me is this one, and here Lacan enters, that, to understand Trump, you have to take into account at the libidinal level, psychoanalytic, this tension. Officially, he proclaims, I'm a fundamentalist, Christian, neoconservative, moral values, and so on. And the enemy is what he calls postmodernism. Historicism, relativism, inconsistency.
He doesn't know these words.
But
He's never said out the word postmodernism. But it can come out of his mouth.
But by great Russian philosophers, I mean it ironically, do you know, I quoted somewhere that the real guy, madman, Alexander Dugin, he praises Trump and especially Vance. In his crazy reading of Lacan, he said, my reaction was like, in cartoons, when Tom or Jerry sees something, your eyes go out, and he said, Vance is doing such a wonderful, Gide Vance, Lacanian intervention that probably he must have read Lacan. So what I'm saying is that that's the key to Trump, but in the mode he functions as a person. Can you imagine a more radical, caricatural version of, let's say, postmodernism. He cheats, lies, is inconsistent, and so on and so on. So something really new, a new form of, not just of argumentation, Trump doesn't really argue, but of how political subjectivity functions and so on. Here you need somebody like Lacan to see what? To see that liberation, sexual, libidinal, is not simply open up yourself, your repressed desires and so on. If you do that, it can be even worse. Not to be too long, I advise you to read. I rediscovered now, and I'm more stupid than you, which means when I say Lacan, it's like Hegel. I always begin with reading good interpretations, and then maybe I read Lacan. But in his seminar from 69-70, his reaction to 68, Lacan said something wonderful. He says protesters are missing something in their demand for sexual liberation, Lacan. They are missing a little bit of shame. The way they want liberation, they will get a new master, which will be more obscene than themselves. And that's what we are getting today. That's why I wonder if you would agree with this. Yes, privately, I am obscene, we make jokes, but you know in what age we live? When I was young, I'm older than you, so before, do you remember the typical leftist strategy was do obscene gestures, say dirty words to those in power who pretend to be dignified and so on, while we protest, while those in power pretend to be dignified and so on. But now it's almost the opposite. It's those in power who are doing unimaginable things. So I think the lesson of psychoanalysis today is not get rid of repression, but shame, not shame as a sign of oppression, like I'm ashamed of my dirty dreams, but shame in what sense? Here, I hope we have here the same position. I'm very critical here and there about Lenin. But these people notice something which I find wonderful. We know all, old Marxists, Lenin's testament. You know, he goes through all the contenders for the highest post except Bukharin doesn't understand dialectic, Kamenev, Zinoviev were against October. He finds some political fault in everyone. But then the only guy he is really against is Stalin. But what's his reproach to Stalin? Just that he doesn't have manners, he's shamelessly brutal and so on. I find this wonderful, this
And he wasn't wrong.
Sorry?
He wasn't wrong.
He wasn't wrong.
Extrapolate from basic human behavior.
Yeah.
What he would do when he was an absolute dictator. But as communists, I introduced you as a reasonably or moderately conservative communist. That's what you call yourself. Okay.
But
let's shift to
I
psychoanalysis.
would be at the same level here, because I noticed we both
we
went
both
through
know
that
the same.
in Germany and so on. Do you know that I always remember when I look at your and also my fate, I also had, not as big as you, but some trouble after last year's Frankfurt Book Fair, that moderately conservative mass media, I can publish their things which this fake progressive left-center media never publish.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
It's the radical center that effectively tries to annihilate people like me and you. But let's go back to communists, right?
Yeah.
We're both communists.
Yeah.
Strange, weird, very odd.
Not socialist, but communist.
Yeah, hugely contradictory communists, and you know,
Yeah,
and
but
reluctant communists.
Yeah, but because the
But okay,
situation is...
in your communism,
Yeah.
what happens to Google, Meta, and Mercedes-Benz? What do we do with them? Let's say you are the leader.
Okay, now
you are
you
Lenin.
want to be evil.
I be the
us.
cooler. You don't disagree, right? What do we do about Google, Meta, Amazon, Mercedes-Benz, Alstom,
It is,
British Aerospace.
it is absolutely clear that although I am not able here, I should learn from you, that we absolutely have to establish some sort of social control to use your terms, de-feudalize them. Because here we come to your topic of feudalism, and you agree with me here. My key, where I reading your stuff, not only this book, you were using this term for neo-feudalism, techno-feudalism, is that the key of this new mega corporative capitalism, digital and so on, is that it's a new form of the privatization of commons, but not the old style where what was common, one capitalist grabbed this, the other that. No, take Bill Gates, take Jeff Bezos and so on. The very space in which even capitalists and workers and so on exchange stuff is controlled by them. That's the feudal moment. I agree with you, and now I ask you a question, but a positive one. In your book on techno-feudalism, you even give a hint, and I would say, why not? That at a tactical level, maybe at some point, the left should even risk a tactical alliance with some small capitalists against the big corporations and so on. I shouldn't be afraid of this.
That's Lenin too.
Yeah, please. Although,
Let's say, if you're a small-scale capitalist producing electric bicycles and you're selling them through Amazon.com or any of these platforms, Jeff Bezos is retaining 40% of the price. So essentially, you pay ground rent, cloud rent, I call it, to the techno-feudal lord. So there is scope for an alliance, but of course the alliance needs a political party too. That's going to be the avant-garde. And we don't have the Labour Party here.
No, I wouldn't you agree with not, I will now be really deep in that. United Kingdom now has a big radical centre party, which is more oriented towards the right, but right centre, and it's called Labour Party.
They have the proper Thatcherite party in government now, because Rachel Reeves, the moment, even before she was elected, dared say to you folks, warn you of the austerity which is now imposing on you, that
in contrast to the beautiful lady AOC with about whom we both have serious doubts for political orientation, but that you said that he already, when did he begin? 8-10 years ago, then he should have risked a third party. The big problem with Democrats, among others, is that they all the time focus on this fear: if we move too much to the right, we will lose the centrist workers. But I think...
To the left, if we move too much to the left.
To the left, we will lose. But Bernie already 15 years or how much ago gave a proper answer to this. I find it ingenious. He said, no, our target should not be this center. Our target should be those poor white people who otherwise vote for Trump today. And he proved that this can work in Vermont. Who are his voters? Those poor small farmers. But to make the basic point, that's important. Don't you think that now, when we have this nightmare in power, the solution should not be what radical, liberal, moderate, they think they are not center, leftist center, try to convince us, now we have all to stick together. No, now it's the time to risk a third party, which a genuine leftist party, which simply says openly what it has to be done. We can go later into this communism and so on, because I think that, again, the genius of Bernie was that already at that point, again, he said our target should be those who otherwise vote for Trump, and Trump is, as you wrote about it, is literally getting strength from this get, because he literally addresses, he is not only anti-immigrant, his anti-immigrant stance is at the same time sustained by a pseudo, not leftist, but sympathy with ordinary working people and so on and so on. So would you agree or not that, of course, strategically, let's say we have two blocks, radical center and whatever it will be, new left. Now, I don't a priori exclude partial collaborations, like if there is a law proposed by conservatives against abortion or LGBT, whatever, no problem. We go together with them. But we must make our position clear, the left. Or do you see a problem here?
I see no problem with this whatsoever. And Bernie Sanders had the right instinct when he was saying that more than 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. In a country where if you fall ill, you become bankrupt, and you fall out of the point of view of society. You become completely marginalized. You become a non-person.
Yeah.
And therefore, the majoritarian views within society, because let's face it, we leftists are in the majority when it comes to a position. If you were to go out there here in Britain and you were to say to people, what do you prefer? 300 billion to be spent on nuclear submarines that we can't even use because we don't have the keys. The Americans have not passed them on to us, from whom we import the nuclear submarines. Or should we put them in, social housing, so that we ameliorate the fact that, young people cannot afford to buy a house or to rent a house? 80% deep down, they will say, of course, nuclear submarines are a waste of time, especially if we don't have the keys to them. And if one question after the other, our positions are majoritarian, and yet the center-left parties never adopt them.
Yeah.
Never adopt them.
And that's where Trump
They're thinking that if they become like the right, but the right that is light, racist light, pro-capitalist light, that it doesn't work. And Margaret Thatcher was the one that answered the question. Because I remember she was being interviewed in 1996, just before Tony Blair was elected. And the interviewer, BBC interviewer I think it was, said to her, "But Mrs. Thatcher, why don't you like this young man, Tony Blair? He has copied everything you've ever done. And he's adopted completely your ideology." She said, "Yeah, this was my greatest success in my career because he turned the Labour Party into a version of the Tory Party." And then she continued and said, "But if you're going to vote for the Tory Party, why not vote for the actual one?" And this is why, the centre-left loses time after time after time. So Bernie Sanders, I understand why if you are in the Labour Party now, you're John McDonnell, you haven't been thrown out yet, as Jeremy was, why you're not going against the grain of the awful first past the post system, which will continue to effectively ruin, even if you get 20% of the people. This is the tragedy of the electoral system. I can understand that, but Bernie in 2016 he had 900,000 volunteers and a lot of money that was collected. The nomination was stolen from him in a criminal fashion by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and he comes out and supports Hillary Clinton. That was a mistake.
Yeah, because he still, again, thought, one of my books, I hope you will agree with the metaphor, in one of my books I said, Trump is not just a bad guy, obviously, but he is literally, in Freudian sense, a fetish figure. This notion of fetish in Freud, which may appear too simple, but it's more complex. Let's drop this, where he says, fetish is in principle the last thing you see before seeing castration. No? That's why it's hair or feet or whatever before the guy undresses. Okay, let's not go into what Freud meant. What I want to say is that for this new pseudo-welfare, politically correct radical center, Trump is the last thing they see before they would see class struggle, social antagonism. That's why they need this demonization of Trump. Now, I'm not against demonizing Trump, but would you agree or not? We should never forget.
Demonizing Trump.
Sorry?
I'm against demonizing Trump. Yes, Trump is such a poor excuse for human nature that you do not need to demonize him. You just talk bluntly about the fact that he's making promises to the dispossessed. What he's very good at, at the Lacanian level, whatever, he connects with people. He tells them, I feel your pain, there is carnage in America, you have been fucked by this elite.
Which is true.
And then he makes promises which he never intends to see through. He takes the CEO of Goldman Sachs and makes him Treasury Secretary. He takes all the bastards from the real estate sector and makes them responsible for housing. He takes Kennedy and makes him responsible for health. So why do you need to demonize him? Just say that.
No, but
the Democrats will not even say that. Because they are the ones that were part of completely destroying 60% of the American population.
Yeah, so again, I totally agree. That's my point, what you said now. It's that we should never forget, while of course fighting Trump together with whomever when he will infringe on LGBT, women's rights and so on, that Trump is a symptom of the failure of this radical
He's
sector.
a symptom of Obama.
Yeah.
He was the creation of Obama.
Yeah.
Remember, Obama was elected at the height or the depth of the worst capitalist crisis since 1929. So you had the bankers who had absolutely wrecked the lives of millions of Americans. And he gets up there and says, yes we can. Yes we can do what? Punish the Wall Street bastards who created the circumstances of the gloom and doom of the American people, and here in the United Kingdom, and in Europe and so on, and support the victims of this crisis. And what does he do? He takes Larry Summers and Tim Geithner, the two men that Bill Clinton had appointed to unleash the toxic powers, the demonic powers of Wall Street upon the American people, and he makes them responsible for two things: bailing out the bankers, and also imposing austerity on the people who voted for him. So the result is Trump.
And you know, absolutely. And you know what's the irony here? Cruel irony that, all this just focusing on Trump, horror, deportation of immigrants. But look at the numbers under Obama's rule. There were more deportations, just done more discreetly than
Obama was deporting the parents of American citizens, of children whose parents were American citizens. That's what Obama did. I mean, even now, Biden has created more draconian conditions at the wall, separating America from Mexico, than they were under Trump.
Okay, now I ask you a provocative question in the sense that how should I reply? Some of my friends who will join you in Gulag water, so I don't agree with them, who say, but nonetheless, didn't Biden, like the first president who went to support auto workers' strike, didn't he nonetheless in economy did some not so bad things in economy? Or I want a reply to you so that I can answer my critics.
Absolutely, he did. He did some interesting things, but they were for show. They were not the substance. He did, symbolically it was important to go and join the picket line at the auto workers' strike. I saluted that. But what was his policies regarding industry? What were his policies regarding the vast number of people who, as I said before, once they fall ill, they go bankrupt and they simply are annihilated. Nothing. He was always in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry, of the medical industrial complex. He always bent over backwards to accommodate the needs of the rentiers, of the financiers. So, when it comes to making a choice between the two sides, look, I understand, I wish both of them had lost the election.
Absolutely.
Right? I wish both of them had lost. I would not have voted for either of them. I do not condone anyone who says that because Kamala Harris is X, Y, Z, and so on, I'm going to vote for Trump. There's always Jill Stein. There's always abstention, where you can express yourself, and there is always political activism to create an alternative. But especially in 2016, you and I were on different camps. You don't remember that?
Where? With regard?
Well, with regard to the American election, because you were saying, vote for Trump. Or you had said it once in 2016.
Yes.
Whereas
I still think I was right, but that's another.
maybe. But Noam Chomsky and I were on stage at the New York Public Library, and somebody asked us, and we said, both of them, we were were not coordinated. You said, if you are in a safe seat, in a safe constituency, vote for Jill Stein, vote for the third party. But if you are in a swing state, hold your nose like that and vote for Clinton so as to avoid a Trump presidency. This was but now,
Absolutely.
I would, in the 2024 election, my point was, Genocide Joe, the Joe Biden and the Kamala Harris, who looked at the American people who were struggling and demanded of them that they celebrate the great economy. They were telling me, you're wrong, inflation is finished. Why are you complaining? You're fools. Whereas Trump was saying, I feel your pain. Now at that point, I think the radical position and the democratic position and the ethical position and the dialectical position was to say neither nor.
No, I totally agree with you, and you know whom you quote here. It's not meant only by irony. From time to time, I'm not a story, Stalin
From time to time, he's not a Stalinist.
Yeah, Stalin produced a nice paradox. You know, when in late 20s he was asked which deviation is worse, rightist or leftist. He said, not both are equally bad, but they are both worse. And that should be. Kamala and Trump, they are both worse. So it's where maybe, you know where I oscillated. Now we are not attacking each other, but I sincerely want party guidelines for you. Many people with whom I had contact there, they said, okay, but at an ordinary daily level, if Trump wins, we will be deprived of abortion, more racism, and so on. So, nonetheless, should we, that's one of the arguments.
On the question of abortion, on the question, I have enormous empathy for every woman of reproductive age in the United States, because the removal of basic human rights for women under that Supreme Court and under the Trump administration is a major defeat for humanity. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But we cannot think on a single issue. Kamala Harris, in my view, because she simply would not be in control of the government, it would be the neocons behind, would be a clear and present threat to world peace. The Democrats, they have never seen, the people who are amongst the cabal that is ruling the Democratic Party now, they're the neocons, you know, the Cheneys and the Wolf of Business have moved from the Republican Party and were the Democratic Party. These people have never seen a war they don't like. And I very much fear, however mad, sad, and bad Trump is, that under the Democrats, the rest of the world would be much greater peril under the Democrats.
I tend to agree with you, and I will give you a proof. No way in whatever we can make, in whatever way we can make fun of Trump and so on, but sorry, although it failed, by simply contacting Kim Jong-un, North Korea, the tension was eased. Trump did a surprising thing. You remember when there was tension in Korea, the true madman, who is now, of course, on the Democratic side, John Bolton, of course, we sent 2,000, and Trump fired him. Said, no, I don't want world war, and so on.
Not only that, he stopped the US Air Force. The planes were in the sky about to bomb Tehran, and Trump woke up in the middle of the night and stopped that. My great fear is that he may not prevent a clash between the United States Armed Forces and the Chinese ones. That because the whole of the American system, even those who disagree with the persecution of the Ukrainian war, even those who disagree with the continuing genocide in Palestine, by the way, it is remiss of us not to have mentioned the genocide in Palestine, which is unfolding as we speak, with the whole people being pulverized. Even those people, they are gung-ho about the possible confrontation, even a military one with China. And that is completely bipartisan in the United States. That's a clear and present danger. But let me because we can talk about Trump forever, and I don't think it deserves.
Listen, a slight, this will interest you, I'm sorry. I am trying in a very friendly way, we can talk normally, to bring out a possible, not even difference, but you know, okay, I'll put it like this. I was once in Japan, and I was told, if you don't agree with a guy, how do you say it there? And I was told, probably alive, that the polite Japanese way is to say, I totally agree with you, I would just maybe put a slightly different accent, which I will say now and tell you. But you know why maybe we make some different formulations, although I paid my price for supporting Palestinians, that Frankfurt Book Fair, not as heavy price as you, but I'm also now absent from the media in
That is a badge of honor.
Yeah, yeah, but look, I am not, in contrast to you, maybe, I'm not sure, critical of Hamas from this standard liberal position and so on. My problem is this one. I see definitely here Israel, now it's becoming absolutely clear, the main culprit, and this war absolutely unconditionally served Israel. Israel literally needed this war. Here I draw a parallel, would you agree, between Israel and Iran. In both countries, we have the same problem. Do you remember? It's absolutely clear to remember it. Do you remember what happened in Iran a year before this crisis? Magda Assimi, that Kurdish woman, killed, and then this triggered a feminist movement, much more authentic and radical than all the Western upper-class, liberal, politically correct feminism, because it triggered a general movement. All the Kurds joined it, ordinary Iranians joined it, and as my friends told me there, I have strange connections everywhere in Iran, that it was clear that Iranian nomenclatura needed also a new tension with, not a war like now, but with Israel to control the situation. But wait a minute, the same goes for Israel. Remember what went on in Israel just a couple of months before October attack. Hundreds of thousands of people, mega demonstration against Netanyahu's attempt to take over Supreme Court and so on and so on. And they needed this war. That's why, here I have a tough question for you. Maybe you always know how to squeeze out my God. You know what? I would like just to know more. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what goes on, as it were, behind the scenes, for example. This is confirmed, it's not paranoia. Friends from Israel, authentic anti-Zionists, played to me the audio clips. Do you know that till 2 years ago, Israel fully supported financially Hamas?
For 20 years, they did.
Yeah. Why? But they said
it was very clear. Netanyahu explained it. It's on YouTube. He said because it is the only way of ensuring that we will convince the Americans that there will never be a two-state solution. If Hamas represented the Palestinian people. Allow me a Hegelian answer to your question, if I can. Let me try it out.
Today I'm in a good mood, so you can. Okay. You see, this is. Sorry. Now I make a very serious remark. You think we are joking, but that's the spirit that we bring. We can be radically ethical, sacrifice our lives, and so on. But if this type of simple, benevolently evil irony disappears, we are in a world where I don't want to live. So I agree.
Look, firstly, a point of principle. Hamas, like every Palestinian, Fatah, individuals, had a duty to attack the fences in the Gazans in a concentration camp. Gaza is not a country, it is a concentration camp created in 1948. Anyone subsisting in it, not living, had a duty to themselves, like POW, prisoners of war. People have a duty, according to the Geneva Convention, to escape. They had a duty to attack that fence and the sentries of the IDF that were there fencing them in. They had no right to attack civilians because this is a war crime. So I'm making this point directly. But I think that Hamas were absolutely right to attack the fence when they did. For the reasons that you are advocating. Because this conflict in the Middle East, which begins with a project of white settlement, ethnic cleansing, which is the project of the State of Israel, which insists on being a Jewish state, like saying, imagine saying today that we want England to be a Christian state. I mean, it's only, you know, the Robinsons of the world and the ultra-fascists who are talking about that in this way, or Greece's Christian state. So, this project, this project, if you think about the end of late 2023, we have the following situation. You describe very well the inner contradictions within Iranian society. As Hegelians and Marxists, we have simultaneously to support the woman life freedom movement and not side with the imperialist attempt to subjugate Iran from the United States perspective of regime change.
Now, I want to ask you...
Well, let me finish, because the Hegelian thing has three components. So you have the inner contradictions of Iran, which need to be played out. Then you have the inner contradictions of Israel. Because in Israel you have a gigantic clash between the original Ashkenazi, European, pseudo-social democratic conception of the nation state that is Israel versus the brutish, fascistic settlers of Judea. So you have the Judaic state versus the Judea state. This is a clash within Israel. And then you have the Arab world, where Donald Trump was very successful in his first term to create the Abraham Accords, which is essentially to take 6 Arab states and manage to have a deal with Netanyahu's Israel that essentially freezes the Palestinians out. So most of the Arab world agreed that the Palestinians can be allowed to wither, to die slowly and perish in silence. So this breakthrough, when the Hamas fighters went through the fence, essentially allowed the Hegelian dynamic in Israel, in the Arab world, and in Iran to play itself out. How it's going to play itself out? We know that at the moment, whole people are being pulverized. South Lebanon is becoming, again, killing fields. The Israeli society is totally tormented. Progressive Israelis are abandoning the country. They are emigrating, leaving it to the fascistic settlers. This, in the end, cannot end well for Israel.
Yeah, I totally.
This cannot end well for Israel. So I gave you my
attempt
at the Hegelian answer.
Although I'm more important by old age, a common sense man, and I'm a little bit of tired. This guy all the time mentions Hegel and this. No, seriously.
I'm in good company.
Yeah, seriously. Would you then agree with me? Another idea came to me. You know, reactionaries often used to criticize in a brutal racist way so-called, I don't like the term, third world countries. They use the way failed state, no? I say, why don't we use this term? I will try to give you a precise definition of a failed state, very naive, in bourgeois terms. Failed state is for me a state which no longer can reproduce itself without openly relying on illegal gangster bandit forces. Now, of course, every conservative will be, of course, look at Haiti, primitive state, 80% is controlled by gangs. I say, okay, but let's go on. Israel is a failed state in this sense. Look who is Ben Gvir. Are you aware that Ben Gvir, who is now this unimaginable irony, even Hegel would get dizzy in this. He is now responsible for security, public security on the West. 20 years ago, he was condemned as a criminal by the Israeli... Convicted by the Israeli court. So, settlers, I agree with you. They are basically a form of violent gangsterism which was deftly manipulated. Now it's openly supported for decades by the state of Israel. Formally, they distanced themselves from it, but and so on. And I think same things you find all around. In Russia, it was similar with Wagner Group.
Yeah.
First they said, no, it's independent, then we learned that. And even in the United States, you know, the paradox of Trumpists and others is that, yeah, for example, Proud Proud Boys and so on, you have groups here that should awaken you. If you have some sympathy towards authentic Judaism, and we both have, who are these, the new American populist right, many of them, that's a mistake there, erase it, it says, please.
Don't worry, no, this is for me.
Okay.
In 4 minutes, you will have to come up with decent questions. Or indecent questions.
No, what I would is that Proud Boys and so on, they are paradoxically anti-Semitic and at the same time anti-Arab, they are a nightmare, but nonetheless the state more and more tolerates them. This is for me the true problem. Another problem, I wrote the text, would you agree? So we live in a world more and more of failed states. We don't get to look for them in poor so-called third world. We get them here in the developed so-called West. Second point, your idea of neo-feudalism. I wrote a short text, maybe you know.
Techno-feudalism.
Sorry?
Techno.
I know. Here we will in Gulag when I will visit you.
So he will visit me. Hey, we've established that.
I'm a wrong human being, why not? Okay. You know what? Would you agree or not? You know, I always try to ask myself, okay, big conflicts, Gaza, Ukraine, and so on, but horrors are also going on everywhere around now, like in Sudan, mega war, and there is, would you agree or not, that's the idea came to me. We have techno-feudalism, big corporations and so on, ultra-developed. But is it not that in many so-called, sorry for the term, third world countries, which are, I use this term consciously, cursed by too much natural wealth. The best explanation a Marxist friend from Congo gave me is if all the natural wealth, mines and so on, diamonds, were to disappear from Congo, it would have been poor but much happier country. Okay, what I'm saying
like
is
Singapore, for instance, has no natural resources.
Yeah, so my point is simply, I will be over very quickly, this idea that I studied a little bit the situation in Sudan, not South Sudan, that's another nightmare. You have simply so-called, it's a suspicious term, but I use it because they are in our media, a warlord really as a feudal master controls a certain domain and of course sells to big Western companies. So, would you agree or not, the sad thing is that we have this big, ultra-developed techno-feudalism, which is more and more accompanied by even more brutal than in the developed Middle Age, brutal true local feudalism. You have a warlord who totally controls. So even this feudalism has two sides. We should never forget how our wealth in the West is sustained by extremely brutal conditions.
And local dictatorships and local mirror images of the oligarchies of the West.
Yeah,
the oligarchies of the North.
Yeah.
Because we need to go to the Q&A part of our meeting. Can I share with you something that I missed?
You now want to be.
This is my trick.
You will say Q&A. I will ask you the first question.
The law, and it has been bestowed upon me this duty of controlling.
Don't talk like that.
Look, so we come from a very problematic part of the world, the Balkans. I miss Yugoslavia. Do you?
Yes and no, and I'm not trying to squeeze
Yes
out
and no.
that Sherlock again. I will tell you what, maybe we will disagree here. I was there, and since Slovenia is, as now our new beloved president, not yours, but Donald Trump once said about some country, shithole of a country, no? Slovenia was, in a good sense, when it became independent, shithole of a country, in the sense that, you know, like, even under communism, general secretary of the party was not a guy whom once a year you saw in a limousine protect. It was a guy whom you could meet on the street even without bodyguards.
Because of decentralization.
Yeah, and all that. So I knew that you know, I think, maybe you will disagree, that the original sin was Milosevic, who Yugoslavia worked as a certain fragile coalition with many unwritten
Why would
rules.
I disagree? I think Milosevic was a bastard from hell
Yeah.
who killed communism in Yugoslavia.
Yeah,
And self-managed.
that's my point. So I
don't
don't
disagree
buy
on that
this
boring.
usual story from
No
some
disagreement.
English leftists. You Slovenes are even the worst. I know Slovenia again is a shithole of the country. I knew personally at that point General Secretary Milan Kucan and others. From 85 on, they were desperately trying to save Yugoslavia in some slightly different forum, and they failed. So I agree, when you said this, I agree.
So we agree, again, to inject a little bit of interest in this boring consensus of ours. Yeah. The floor is yours. Let's have some lights on. And we have a question from the back of the downstairs room. Actually, no, I mean, you will decide. Freedom and liberty. It's 9 o'clock and I've been told that we have to be thrown out of respect for the workers in this building.
This is the
which of
deepest
course we
manipulation.
have
All the time,
always to be
lazy
like that.
leftists,
At
when
the
they are
highest
afraid
level
of
of
a
thinking.
rebel, lazy leftists evoke some pool cleaning ladies who...
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's all give a round of applause.
A joke about him, which I think is my best, you remember from Ljubljana. What did he give us, really, Yanis? Nothing. Okay, I will play the game of, you know, that Monty Python, you know, when somebody
What they
says,
have the Romans done for us?
yes, what can, and then somebody said, but they gave us roads. Others said, but they gave us water, aqueducts. And then at the end, the leader of the party says, okay, disregarding water, safety, blah, 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 what did Rome did for us? Nothing. So I would say, what did Yanis do? He threw a new light on what today's capitalism is, how it's no longer capitalism. He had incredible insights into corruption in developed capitalism. He always took care of sympathy with the third world, but without falling into this trap of, because of the, so he did practically everything. And apart from that, what did he do for us? Nothing. I repeat here, you know, Hitler,
Slavoj is going to be signing, and if you would like to have your book signed or to say hello, the book signing queue is going to be out that door. Can I ask that you stay in your seats while Slavoj and Yanis leave the stage?
While we're carrying Slavoj out.
And thank you so much for coming.
Girl didn't get to us.